Morning Report. The Green Party co-leader James Shaw has been dealt two hefty blows. Not only the confirmation the capital gains tax has been ditched, but also that Jacinda Ardern has taken it off the table as long as she's Prime Minister. In February, he suggested on this programme that the government didn't deserve to be re-elected if it didn't follow through with a capital gains tax. And now, though, he says he's changed his mind, saying they do deserve to be re-elected for their work on climate change, tackling homelessness and cleaning up rivers. James Shaw, Associate Minister of Finance and co-leader of the Green Parties in the Wellington studio. Atamari.
Good morning.
New Zealand First pulled this down, didn't they?
Well, as the Prime Minister said, they couldn't form a consensus in Cabinet around that recommendation on the capital gains tax, and so they pulled it.
And so you are outside Cabinet, but clearly were supportive.
Well, we were consulted on the indecision, and so, we just got to a point where we said, well, this is clearly not going to go any further, so government has to proceed.
But the Prime Minister ultimately must have buckled under pressure from Winston Peters, because Labour supported it and the Greens supported it, so who's left?
Well, I mean, that's a question for her and for the Deputy Prime Minister. I wasn't privy to those conversations. Our relationship primarily was through Grant. We were talking with him on a regular basis about where we were hoping it might go. But it is a coalition government, and ultimately in coalition governments, not everyone gets everything they want all the time. Indeed,
but what is the quid pro quo?
There isn't a quid pro quo. I think the thing about this government actually is that you actually look at each issue by issue, and each thing stands or falls on its merits.
But you're having to swallow quite a dead rat on this one. So are you saying you're not getting anything in return?
Well, we're getting to be in government, and along with that comes a substantial set of policy gains that we wouldn't have if we weren't in government.
But what is the point of being in government if you don't get some of the major wins?
Well, we are getting some of the major wins. So I'll give you some examples. We've put $14.5 billion into rapid transit, buses, light rail, walking and cycling over the next 10 years. We've had the largest funding in conservation in the last 16 years. We're about to introduce the zero carbon bill into Parliament. So you've got across a whole range of areas, huge progress, more progress than we were able to make in the 20 years that we were in opposition.
It's being reported, though, this morning on Politic that New Zealand First will be folding their opposition to Labour's climate change policies, and that is the price. Is that not the case?
I haven't read Politic this morning. Sorry.
But is that something you know about or not?
Look, I'm not aware of that report, so I can't comment on it.
So there is no quid pro quo as far as you know? That's what that report would seem to indicate?
Well, like I said, I haven't seen it, so it's hard for me to comment on something I haven't seen.
But it's not anything that you've heard from the Prime Minister, or indeed as these final negotiations have been taking place?
No, it's not.
Can the government still claim to be transformational?
Yes, I think we can.
Why?
Well, because, like I said, on so many areas, and Grant Robertson was talking about that this morning, the work that we're doing on ending homelessness, on lifting people out of poverty, ending child poverty, on mental health, on climate change, on conservation, on cleaning up our water, those are the areas that really tipped the election in 2017, and those are the areas that we're making progress on. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not disappointed about this decision, right? I am, and Green Party policy hasn't changed on that. But, as with anything, you've got to take it all in the round, and when I said that, I think that we should be, questioning ourselves, we should always be questioning ourselves about how transformational our government is. And actually, I think that we're doing, in fact, have done more in the last 18 months than the previous government did in 9 years. And so I would choose it every time.
To achieve targets around lifting children out of poverty and social justice that are also something that the Greens are very interested in, the only way to achieve those targets now is going to be with borrowing, isn't it?
Well, that is a question for the Minister of Finance. But
I'm asking you because it's Green Party policy as well. So how would you be wanting to achieve those targets? You're going to need extra money coming from somewhere. Are you going to borrow it?
Yes, we are. But I can't comment on this year's budget, obviously, because that's about to be announced.
But you've been talking about the relaxation or the possible relaxation of the fiscal rules you signed up to. Is that how you get these over the table?
I believe so, yes.
So there is going to be extra borrowing?
I can't tell you that.
But you believe so?
Well, look, no. Ultimately, I think that if you look at the long-term fiscal strategy of the government, we have said that we think that needs to be reviewed, and we intend to do so. At the moment, actually, the economy is doing very well, and we've got revenue coming in. So, there are things that we're able to invest in that we wouldn't have been able to invest in otherwise.
You famously said that the government didn't deserve to be re-elected if you didn't follow through with the capital gains tax. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Well, what I said was we should be asking ourselves the question of whether or not we deserve to be, and we should be asking ourselves that question all the time on the basis that at the last election, majority of New Zealanders voted for change. They voted for bold change. Now, tax was
and
tax
you could
reform.
say they're not getting it as of yesterday.
Well, no, tax reform is a part of that picture, but it's only a part of that picture. And like I said, if you look at everything that we're doing, whether it's in the domain of lifting people out of poverty or ending homelessness or cleaning up the environment, action on climate change, we have taken some really big calls, and we will be taking some really big calls over the course of the coming 18 months before the next election. And so in the round, yes, I do believe that we deserve to be re-elected, but we should never stop asking ourselves that question.
Thank you very much for your time. James Shaw there, Associate Minister of Finance and co-leader of the Green Party at 18 to 8.
Amy Adams is the finance spokesperson.